and welcome back to 501c TV. I'm your host, Janelle Harris, and this is the podcast that talks to thought leaders, system change leaders, nonprofits, and nonprofit partners to find out what's new in the industry. And this morning, I have a very unique guest on today. I have Scott Harris, also my husband, from PYRA Promotions and nonprofit Nest. Good morning.
Well, hello, Janelle.
Welcome.
It's nice to be on finally.
Absolutely. So I'm actually really happy to have you on here today because I know we obviously talk a lot about work on a daily basis together since we work together. But I want to talk about the promotional products industry today with Scott specifically because he has over 20 years industry experience and knowledge. And how that relates back to nonprofits is that there is a brand that Scott rolled out and started up called Nonprofit Nest, which is doing all the same things that PYRA Promotions has been doing here for over 20 years, but catering it specifically to the nonprofit world, which I think is so important.
Yeah, I mean, so we kind of just realized when we met with a few of our nonprofit friends that there was a lacking in them getting promotional products and having, people just weren't kind of looking at them, whether or not it was just, they don't know what they need or
correct.
I mean, corporate obviously is super easy. We know what they need. They have trade shows, they go do this, but nonprofits do a bunch of different things. They have their galas, they have, their 5K events, they have, different events that, we kind of can help them and collaborate together, with them.
Yeah, and I think one of the kind of unique things that I know you and I always talk about is, the nonprofit world specifically, they can have a unique set of things that they face. So they might have limited resources, not just financially, but also people, so their staff. So they might have turnover on their staff. So when it comes to, getting things like promotional products or they have a big event coming up, they know they have these events coming up every year, but it might be a new person on board that now has to step in and recreate that whole wheel again. And I think one of the things that Scott and I have talked about is how do we help them make that process easier and less painful?
Well, I think we've streamlined it a lot for them, kind of making it to where we have a whole catalog for them to go and look at. So if you have this kind of an event, we have all the items here ready to go kind of for you just to take a look at. And I think us knowing when their events are coming and stuff along those lines, I mean, it's just innate that it happens where everything's always last minute, signage, sponsors, all this kind of stuff that comes in. We have, at least the resources where we can provide that, 24-hour turnaround is needed. I mean, and, that's for our local, kind of people.
Right.
But we have people that kind of do everything for them. And it's kind of the one, I hate saying the one-stop shop, but that's exactly what it is.
So let's talk a little bit too, because I know that, let's talk about PYRA Promotions. So PYRA is the promotional products company that you've had for over 20 years, which I don't think you ever really thought you would be a promotional products guy back in the day. But
it started as the,
here we are.
Yeah, as the ultimate side job.
Yeah.
Had my family business was in pharmaceuticals, and I was always supposed to do that, and kind of just said, let's see where we can take this, and it turned into a real job.
It's a real company, and one thing that I wanted to kind of discuss and set set the groundwork on is what is promotional products marketing? What is that, and what are kind of, I know you and I talk about, it's kind of 3 tiers to the business,
right?
And it's hard to find. So I'm going to have you walk through what those 3 tiers are. Okay. Why they're important and why it's kind of unique that Nonprofit Nest offers all 3 of those.
Right. I mean, there are some companies that will offer, different parts of it.
Right.
One or the other. So our nonprofit friends would have to go for, if they need their pens or they need their mugs or anything what have you that's tangible in that respect, they'll have to go one place. If they need their print, their business cards, their brochures, their banners, stuff like that, they'll go another place. We at least have everything. We call them our 3 pillars. So we have our promotional products, we have our printed
material, which are the pens and mugs and
correct, all the
tchotchke giveaways and all those things.
All that stuff that you need for trade shows, that you need for gifts, stuff like that. So it ranges from your 50-cent lip balms to your $200 luggage sets or something along those lines. Everything branded, of course, with their brand. But then you also have your printed materials, which is your brochures, your flyers, your presentation folders, stuff along those lines.
Banners for events, signage,
foam core signs, everything that you need for that event, or everything that you need to, kind of, the big displays even.
Well, and one thing that I think that's unique that that you're able to offer is, let's talk about just the design,
right?
The graphic design work that goes into it. Because tell me, I mean, you have so many stories about things that come to you and they say, well, somebody at our organization designed this, and they're not a graphic designer. But
we've gotten to the point where, we either get chicken scratch on a napkin,
right?
Or we'll get, somebody will go to Etsy and they'll pull something off,
sure.
and it's 15 colors and this and that. Well, it translates to some things, but not to everything.
Right.
There's costs involved and all that stuff. So what we actually do is we look at the cost-effective type products. For each company is different. Each nonprofit
sure.
is different, and the items that they need are different. So, there's different printing processes, and everything's kind of, in the last 5 years has expanded to more of like a full color type
right.
thing. So everybody thinks they can always get whatever they,
Totally. They see it online or they see a picture of it and they think that it can just translate to any item.
Right.
But also specifically, I'm thinking like folders and brochures. So many times people come to us and, it's basic, and it doesn't really do their brand or their mission the justice on really conveying the message right away when you see that. So
and that's what we have. I mean, we have an amazing graphic designer
yes.
on staff. We actually have like 2 or 3 of them now that we use. But what we do is, like I said, we'll take every item and we'll kind of cater your brand to the full echelon of what can be done.
Right.
Not just simply like, some people will just go, we'll slap your logo right on a white folder.
Totally.
And that's what you have, a white folder with your logo.
Correct.
So it doesn't do anything when, meanwhile, you can take an image, put it in the background, and it's just there, but it adds more to everything that you have.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too, working as long as we have just on the corporate side, the corporate logo is what it is. They have their messaging, they put that out. And sometimes I think with the nonprofits, they have such like a unique story to tell.
Right.
And it's hard,
That's what you love.
I love that.
You love the story.
I love the story. That's why I do this, every week is I like to hear the story of it. But I think especially in the nonprofit world, it's so important that impact is shown like right away in the right way. And it can be really hard to convey that, especially if you have somebody on your staff that is, just kind of like a novice.
Right.
That'd be like
they might not know the story either.
That would be like me.
Right.
'Cause here's a folder and put our messaging on it.
Right.
And by the way, you've never like been trained in like Illustrator or, any graphic design programs, but, put this together and make it look good. So you kind of have some people that are just thrown into it,
right.
Which can be challenging. So,
well, and we always say every product tells the story. It should tell the story about your brand. It should tell, and again, it's challenging on some items,
sure.
And costs and everything kind of, they play a big part in it, but having a partner like us to kind of go through and, take a look at each case, each item on a case-by-case basis and say, well, what can we do with this? Why would we do this? What's the audience that you're trying to reach?
Right.
Those are important questions to ask that you don't get on like the big main websites, like, your 4 imprints of the
right.
world and stuff like that.
And that's what I was going to say next is that I think, you and like the team that you kind of have now doing this focus on nonprofits is so important because I know me personally, like I get pulled into the whole mission side of it, and I'm like, this is awesome.
The tears are flowing.
Always tears, and I get really. That's how to me I can tell if somebody's like really told their story in a really great way because if it's pulling me in like that, and to me it's important that we help them find the right types of products, and
we don't want to waste their money. We don't want to waste like their time. We want to make sure that everything that they're doing is for there's a purpose. Like our mission minded products. Like that's what we're looking for, and taking into that in that into account, we collaborate with all of these nonprofits.
Right.
Where we have ways to kind of sharpen the pencil and make things happen where other, companies can't, they don't think outside the box. Like, how can we get this done?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, because one of the major things that is a top of mind to any nonprofit, fundraising,
Right.
right? Like they need money from the donors. So let's talk a little bit about fundraising and some of the things that like PYRA Promotions and Nonprofit Nest have been able to do over the years to help people fundraise. Because there's a lot of different unique ways to kind of do it.
There are many ways that we've kind of, come out with. We have one where, our websites that we do have for, merchandise and stuff along those lines, where we can have it ready to go. Like their retail sites that their people, their customers can purchase from, a portion of every sale goes back to the nonprofit.
Gotcha.
Again, we try to do this where there's no cost in the nonprofit. They don't have to buy all of the T-shirts up front. They don't have to do that, which is huge.
That is huge.
Yeah.
It's that upfront cost, and I think that is also like a big barrier. So I know that when a lot of people come to us from nonprofits, they're like, "Oh man, I wish to have like a retail site where I could sell hoodies and T-shirts, but I just don't have the money to outlay up front to A, build the site, B, manage it, and C, buy inventory."
Right. And
that's the beauty of what we do.
Right. And we have certain stipulations that, that we have to, go through before we build them. But once it's built and, we're selling the goods in essence for you, we're your sales force that's out there. All we ask is that you send it out to your people and keep promoting it, because at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everybody that's involved.
And the more people that go through that site and purchase, the more money they're getting back on the back end.
And the more their mission is getting out there with all the branded stuff. And, it's just, it's that win-win that we're looking for. That's exactly kind of why we started Nonprofit Nest, was, to kind of, it's the whole idea of the nest. Like we have all of the things that we do are at their fingertips. They can use us for all the different aspects of what we can bring to their business.
Gotcha, which is kind of cool. So
thanks.
Tell me a little bit too about, some of the nonprofits that are out there. They're kind of complicated, right? So they might have like multi-sites or different charters. So although we're here local, they might be national.
Right.
How do you handle that? What can you do for that?
That's actually our specialty. Okay. So our specialty is kind of bringing, all the different sections. So let's just say, for instance, there's a charter in Chicago.
Okay.
I just use Chicago because that's my home.
That's where we're from.
It's our home. And then there's also one in, California. There's one in New Jersey. There's, they're all over the place, right? So all of these people currently are purchasing from 4 different promo guys, 4 different companies that can be doing it. And now take into account that one has promotional products, one has apparel, one has print.
So one could be a T-shirt guy, one could be a printer down the road just doing.
They're buying from so many different people, and when you take the brand of which is super important to these nonprofits and corporate as well. Your brand is everything. So you have some people that don't understand the brand consistency. The colors of the logo,
that can be really important to a lot of them.
The distortion of the logo, stuff like that go on different items. So if you can bring all of that into one website where they can all go, they can all purchase, that's what we do. We kind of make it a centralized purchasing platform where corporate can now be in charge of all the quality of the items that are going out to all of their people. Yeah. And that's what we build.
Yeah, and I think like, I love technology also. So like the technology has also changed a lot. Not, and I don't mean like the technology to make the products. I mean like the technology that PYRA, Nonprofit Nest can offer.
Well, as you know, every day I'm studying this and doing this and looking into different things that we can advance. Right.
And there's so many platforms, and I think that that's kind of like something that sets you apart that you've been able to do, because there might be just a T-shirt guy that's printing T-shirts, but he's not setting up a platform for you to then go out and fundraise with that. Right. Which I think is really unique and certainly very special to the nonprofit world, because that's the bread and butter.
It all goes and helps. You know, it's fun to do. We have fun with it. Yeah. Our nonprofits aren't super, urgent when it comes to that. They're very understanding, knowing that it's going to take the time to set it up. But once it's set up and it's rolling, it's it's rewarding for them.
Awesome. So also one thing that I think is really important that I think Nonprofit Nest has been able to do well is just events, because nonprofits are always doing, again, talking about fundraising. So if you're out there doing fundraising events and all that, they can be stressful.
Yeah.
Stressful for the person that's putting them together, making sure there's a lot of moving parts. And tell me a little bit about how you guys take the stress off of that process and how you can make it easier for them.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with, we backtrack from the event. So we have the event date is so-and-so.
Right.
So when do we need to have all of this information to go? Because, of course, the main focus for galas and the main focus for your 5Ks, for any kind of, walkathon that you're doing, you want sponsors.
Right.
So the sponsors are the ones that delay everything.
Of course.
I mean, if it was up to the nonprofits, we'd have everything done,
Sure.
the year in advance.
But their name has to go on everything.
Right, because
so.
you know when your event is, you know when it's happening, you know what you need. But you want that title sponsor that's going at the back of the T-shirt, and no one's committed yet.
Right.
So we try to wait as long as we can, and then we kind of take it from there. So everything that we need to do, we know what we're doing. We know what items we can wait the longest on.
Sure.
We know what items that we can get in a hurry, and even to the point where if we have to drive down or we have to Uber something up the day of, which happens all the time now. I mean,
I have a good Uber story to tell at the end of this.
Yeah, fun one. Just happened last week. It was great. But nevertheless, it is, it's one of those things where we don't do it unless we can promise it and make sure it happens.
Sure.
And that's where, a lot of companies, like I said, I don't talk bad about any companies, but where they fail is they'll overpromise and underdeliver.
Right.
I'll always tell somebody, listen, I can't do that.
Right.
Which sets the precedence of what we can do and what we can't do.
Yeah, I totally get that. What would say would be your number one reason why you started this in the first place? Why did we offshoot Nonprofit Nest?
Yeah, we didn't have to.
Yeah, where did it come from?
Right. So, I mean, I think honestly, PYRA Promotions is 24 years now. I know, it's crazy.
You're old.
The gray hairs are not from the company; those are from our kids.
Yeah, they are.
But nevertheless, why did we start this? I mean, not only did we start Nonprofit Nest, but 501c TV at the same time as well. There was a need. There was a need, I think, for the nonprofits to know that there's people here to help them, and not just another company.
Yeah, and you know what? I thought for me, the one thing that always stuck out in my mind was the number. When I heard that number of how many nonprofits were just in Palm Beach County alone.
Yeah, I think it's over 8,000 nonprofits.
It's a ton, you guys. It's a ton of nonprofits. And when I heard that, because I always feel like Palm Beach County is so small and kind of intimate, but
it's not.
It's not. There's a lot of really, really good stuff going on. So I know for me, obviously we started the podcast more to just put a spotlight on it because, a lot of our friends we'd be talking to and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of that.
Right.
I've never heard of that nonprofit. I didn't even know they did this.
Yeah. So your show is in essence to get the word out there.
Right.
It's to give content in a professional studio, Cotton House Studios.
Yes.
So it's to give, the content out there so they can have reels, they can have stuff to get their event dates out there.
Right.
They can get their message out there. And, that was something that was super important for us to, give. We wanted to make sure that they had that arena. And then Nonprofit Nest kind of just, a place where, not only do you need, nonprofit accountants and attorneys and stuff along those lines, but
all those resources.
Yeah, like Donor Box, we're now, collaborating with them, to kind of bring that in to all of our nonprofit partners. When we build their websites, when we do all their promo stuff, everything kind of is together in that nest. And I just felt that it was important to have a separate brand for that alone.
I get that. Makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about something kind of unique that you've been doing a lot lately, which I really want to talk about with the nonprofits. Let's talk in-kind donations.
Oh, okay.
That's what did you think I was going?
I don't know. I didn't know where you were going with it.
Yeah, no, in-kind donations, because I think that people hear that word a lot. And they understand kind of what it is, but maybe they don't.
Right.
But I want you to talk a little bit about how you've been able to, because again, let's back up a little bit. There's three things you can offer a nonprofit from kind of an outside looking in, right? Just me as I'm researching the mission.
Right.
I can offer money, just cold hard cash. I can offer time, and I can offer talent.
Right.
By way of, volunteering or a service that I can provide to them. And then there's this next level, which is kind of in-kind donations, right? So tell me a little bit about in-kind donations and how nonprofitness was able to be like a little bit more
outside the box.
Yeah, like creative.
Right.
That's the word I was looking for. Creative instead of just, you know, we're not a huge company.
Right.
You know, we're not like
we're not
FPL out there, you know, and we can just like write checks every week, or else we would be broke because I would be writing checks. Every check would be written out to every nonprofit because I would be like, I love them. I take my money. So let's talk a little bit about in-kind donations because I think that's really important.
Yep.
And something that we've been kind of able to work on.
Right. So, I mean, you know, the core of it all is, you know, trying to find a way where the nonprofit doesn't spend all their money. They, when they have an event, they make money.
Right.
You know, I mean, we've heard how many times where
they're just breaking even.
They had an event and they just broke even.
Yes.
You know, and hopefully they got the word out there and they get more donations coming in that they might not know about. But, you know, most of the time, you know, it's a big expense to have.
And hopefully they're not losing.
Yeah, and hope that they're not losing.
Right.
You know, because most of the time
they can.
You know, so, you know, our whole thing with the in-kind donations is that, you know, while we're giving them our time and talent, you know, I mean, we're giving that to you, you know, as a partner of ours, as a customer of ours,
right?
You know, you get that. That's a service that we just provide to anybody. But at the same time, when it comes to, you know, our nonprofit friends, we'll give that little bit back.
Right.
You know, so the in-kind donations back where, you know, maybe this item cost, you know, $5. Well, we can take that, we'll knock it down to $4 for you and take that $1 in in-kind donations.
Got it.
We become a sponsor for you, you know, for that event kind of, you know, whatever. And again, it's creative. You know, it's figuring out where that lies. Which
is really cool. I know we just did this for a client of of ours for race medals.
Right.
And she was just like blown away. She was like, "Wait a minute, you can do that?" You know, so I appreciate the fact, and I know that our nonprofit clients do too. That you're always trying to like think outside the box, and
we're a for-profit business.
Correct.
There's nothing wrong with, you know, making a couple dollars, but at the same time, it's a win-win-win. Like I said, for everybody involved. You know, they're not going to go somewhere. You know, if companies like ours don't make money, our lights aren't going to be on next year.
True.
You know, so I mean, you have to understand that you know, it costs money for us to have the employees, for the items, for everything else that goes in. So I think people understand that, and they're very appreciative that, you know, we're not only there to service them in the capacity of, you know, their marketing team, but that we do have the heart, and we do want to give back, and we do want to be there for them as a partner.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing at the end of the day, you know, because a lot of people are like, why spin off and start working with nonprofits? And really, truly, I think, you know, you and I have had many conversations. It feels good.
I love
really just feels good to help.
Trust me, I love our corporate customers.
Yes,
We've had a few, you know, I'll give a shout out to like Anda Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Has been a customer of mine for 24 years. Anda Foundation.
They're so charitable too.
They're so charitable. I'm the chairman of the board for the Hands and Feet, and they just donated a ton of money. They have a foundation that just gives money to other nonprofits to help out, you know, and people like that are just amazing, you know. But at the same time, with our nonprofit friends, you can feel the passion behind everything that they do, and the reason that they do it, and the personal stories, and again, the ones that make you cry when you come home. And
it's infectious. It is. You really, like, you talk to these people. For me, like, I tell all my guests to come on. I'm like, Wednesdays are like my favorite days, and they're also Scott's like most terrifying days, because he's like, who's coming on today?
There's no emotion.
Yeah. What new cause are we backing now and getting involved in? But you know what? At the end of the day, like, that's really what makes this.
That's what makes us
worth doing.
We'll sit at dinner and we'll talk about the nonprofit you had in today.
I know.
You know, and then you'll start crying again, or, you know, we'll start.
They don't all make me cry, but
I know, but we'll figure out how we can help them.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, you know, you and I kind of feed off each other with this, and why I think that it's so important what we're doing here, what you're doing. I hate podcasts. I don't do them.
I think he's doing just fine.
I am no good with them, but that's okay. Like, I'm here because I felt it was important to kind of get this out.
We're starting to run out of time a little bit, because that's what happens here, and it goes super fast. You made it.
The hot seat.
You kind of made it through.
As I drink my hot coffee in the hot seat. All right.
But some of the things that I like to hear most are, like, what are some of the stories that stick with you? What are some of the you know, little takeaways we can have of maybe a specific story or two of, like, that sticks out in your mind that you're like, wow, this was like really cool. Like I was happy to be a part of this. It was neat.
Yeah, I mean, the wins, I call them the wins.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they're awesome.
Let's call them wins.
So some of the wins that I love is when we build just a t-shirt fundraising site.
Yeah.
So simple for us to do and to facilitate. Where,
but we do like a really cool design and everyone gets excited about it.
But our designer does a really cool design. Everyone gets behind it. You know, they're doing like a walk or something like that. And they all show up wearing this cool design, like, and stuff that they want to wear afterwards too.
Yes.
Not just something just for the event. But you know, we'll collect all the money and then, you know, we donate thousands of dollars back, you know, to what they're promoting, whether it's, you know, LLS, whether it's, you know, for Alzheimer's, whether it's for the American Heart Association, whatever it is, that's their cause that the money goes back to.
Yeah.
So that's a win that I always love that. I always love seeing how much we can get for them.
And I always love when Scott sends me like a screenshot of something on Facebook and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, those are our shirts.
Didn't know we did these, but like, or we'll be out somewhere like walking around, we'll be like shopping or at a restaurant and Scott's like, that's our
ours.
shirt.
That's ours.
We did that one too. And I'm like, that's so exciting. Super cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then the other thing that I love doing, and you know, granted, again, it's the rushes. It's you know, those are like the things that get your heart kind of beating and pumping. And you know, we had a little issue. I mentioned the Uber earlier and how we ship a lot of stuff with Uber. We do it, you know. Yeah,
they do package deliveries now in case nobody
nuts.
knew.
It's nuts. We do a few deliveries a day using different Uber. But you know, UPS is great, but they'll come pick it up and the next day it might get somewhere or whatever. Sometimes we don't have that time.
Sure.
You know, I mean, these customers are needing it instantly. So whether or not we drive and go get it or we just send the Uber to go get it. So we had an Uber driver that drove down Santa hats for Joe DiMaggio.
But this was like a reorder because they gave away the first batch.
They gave away the first 150 at the United Airlines Fantasy flight, which looks so cool.
It was so cool, you guys. Go check out like Joe DiMaggio's website. You will just be...
Their Facebook page has all the kids smiling.
You will be sucked in, but...
It's super cool, but we put the little, you know, the glove on these plush Santa hats. It was awesome.
They were awesome.
And then, so that event was good. That was a rush.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they said, well, we have a Christmas event coming up. We want those hats too. And that was on Wednesday afternoon.
Before...
Well, Christmas was on Sunday.
Yes.
And they needed them by Friday because, you know, the event and all the prep. So...
Embroidered hats.
The hats are in Chicago on Wednesday.
Okay.
We had to overnight them down to Florida on Thursday. They got here at like 10:30. Our embroiderer was amazing. Kicked them out in, I mean, less than 24 hours.
Right.
And then we Ubered them down to Joe DiMaggio for delivery. Well, the Uber driver
marked it as
delivered. We had Joe DiMaggio looking for them.
Everyone in the hospital and receiving, I think, was looking for them.
The head of security was on the video cameras looking, and nobody showed up. So I ended up, you know, calling Uber, going back and forth, and it turns out that she had them at her house. Super weird. I got in touch with the Uber driver, went and picked them up myself, then came back, Ubered them back down to them, and they got them on Saturday afternoon. The event was Sunday, thankfully. So we were able to get them there in time on Saturday. So
yeah. So it was a win-win.
It's a win, but still.
It was a little stressful in the Harris household, I'm not going to lie. It's like preparing for Christmas, wrapping gifts.
Yeah,
I think I was putting something together, a gift for my daughter, and I was like,
Together we were putting it, you know, we were putting it together, and then I had to leave to go pick up Santa hats.
I can man the power drill. You go get the Santa hats, and it worked out great. So
it's nice. It's nice when those wins work out. That's all.
Yeah, perfect. So I think before we wrap up, you know, again, like Nonprofit Nest, I think is such a cool, like, unique concept, just because it kind of takes all three of those pillars that you talked about and makes it just an easy experience for the nonprofits that are out there when they already have so much on their plate.
Right.
So I think that's kind of like the main thing. But
it's not just Palm Beach County either.
Right, of course. Right. Yeah. It's Nonprofit Nest is...
It's all encompassing.
Worldwide. Okay, it's national. But anyway, what's like the one like main takeaway you want people to leave knowing about Nonprofit Nest?
That it's just a company that has a heart for nonprofits.
Perfect.
That's all.
And if we want to find more out about Nonprofit Nest or PYRA Promotions or what are your other brands, Scott? He has like 10 business cards.
PYRA Promotions, 1130 apparel for our schools. You know, we're just super proud of this right here. So check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, not yet.
No.
Not TikTok.
Nonprofitnest.org?
No, it's actually nonprofitnest.com.
I should know this.
So yeah, so nonprofitnest.com. Check out Janelle on 501c.TV. You're already here, so you might as well go. But yeah, so we're just super proud of what we're doing together. Love working this with you and doing this with you, and let's just keep going.
Cool. All right. So check us out online, and a big thank you as always to Kana House Studios, Wellington's first and only social media content creation studio. Follow along with them as well, and we will see you next time on 501c TV.